Welcome. In The Comfort Crisis, Michael Easter makes a powerful and timely argument. Modern life, with all its conveniences and luxuries, has insulated us from discomfort to such a degree that it is slowly weakening us. As society continues to innovate and build more comfort into every aspect of daily living, climate-controlled environments, instant food delivery, smartphones, and automated everything, we have lost something vital. Easter asserts that comfort, while pleasurable in the short term, has a paradoxical effect. The more we indulge in it, the more sensitive and intolerant we become to any form of discomfort. What was once considered comfortable becomes our new baseline, and anything less becomes intolerable. This ever-shifting standard creates a dependency on ease and predictability while robbing us of growth, adaptability, and inner strength. One of the book's key foundations is the research around voluntary discomfort. Easter highlights studies showing that when people face moderate challenges, not overwhelming or traumatic ones but manageable stressors, they develop increased emotional and psychological resilience. In contrast, those shielded from difficulty tend to struggle more with stress and change. Psychologist Mark Seary's work, which Easter discusses at length, demonstrates that people who have encountered and overcome some adversity in their lives often perform better under pressure and display more grit. This principle is similar to how the immune system works. Exposure to small doses of pathogens builds immunity. Similarly, exposure to discomfort, through physical, emotional, or environmental challenges, builds psychological toughness and prepares us for the unpredictable chaos of life. Easter believes one of the ways to reintroduce productive discomfort into our lives is through ancient rituals and practices, like the Japanese concept of misogi. Misogi typically involves pushing oneself to physical or mental limits, often in nature as a kind of modern rite of passage. When we endure and complete such challenges, our brain engages in the process of long-term memory formation, storing the sensations, thoughts, and lessons of the experience for future use. Easter argues that memory itself is not primarily a tool for nostalgia, but for survival. We remember emotionally charged and uncomfortable events because our brains believe that information may be useful again, perhaps critical to helping us navigate future dangers. These challenging, discomfort-inducing experiences, then, are not just beneficial in the moment. They serve as anchors for learning, preparing us to respond better next time. The book also devotes significant attention to the value of solitude, a state that many modern people find deeply unsettling. Easter explores how solitude has been stigmatized, often being used as a form of punishment. From timeouts in childhood to solitary confinement in prison, we've been culturally conditioned to associate being alone with being bad. As a result, many people equate solitude with loneliness or failure. However, Easter flips this narrative, arguing that solitude, when embraced willingly, is one of the most powerful tools for self-awareness and personal growth. It is in solitude that we encounter our unfiltered selves, free from the noise and expectations of others. This can be uncomfortable without distraction. We are forced to face our thoughts, fears, and desires, but it is also transformative. Being alone, Easter explains, fosters insight. People often report moments of clarity, emotional breakthroughs, or new understanding about themselves when they've had time away from external input. This inner work pays dividends in our relationships with others too. Solitude gives us substance. It cultivates internal richness, so we're not just reacting to others but contributing something original and grounded. Studies have shown that solitude increases productivity, enhances creativity, strengthens empathy, boosts happiness, and reduces anxiety and self-consciousness. In short, spending time alone with our thoughts is not something to avoid, it's something to seek out deliberately. In a world dominated by constant connectivity, Easter examines the hidden cost of our digital dependence, particularly our overuse of smartphones. These devices have become ubiquitous companions, offering endless distractions and instant gratification. But Easter argues that they have stolen something crucial from us, our boredom. Once boredom was a natural part of life, a signal that it was time to reflect, daydream, or create. Now, the moment we feel bored, we instinctively reach for a screen. The consequence is that we short-circuit an ancient neurological reward system designed to help us survive. Easter explains how this behavioral loop, trigger, behavior, reward, once helped our ancestors remember where food was located. Today, however, this survival mechanism has been hijacked. The trigger is no longer hunger or the need to find shelter, it's boredom. The behavior is opening Instagram or scrolling YouTube. The reward is a dopamine hit. Over time, this leads to an erosion of mental endurance. We lose the capacity to sit with discomfort or delayed gratification. Instead of using boredom as a creative or introspective tool, we medicate it with digital stimulation, which Easter likens to junk food for the mind. The result, a population that is increasingly anxious, distracted, impatient, and dissatisfied. Research shows that our screen-saturated lifestyles are contributing to depression, mental fatigue, and a diminished sense of presence and purpose. To counter this, Easter explores the value of boredom, not as a curse, but as a gateway to creativity, reflection, and resilience. Before we had smartphones, we would often respond to boredom by writing, inventing, playing, walking, or simply thinking. These activities provided essential cognitive benefits. Now, however, our default response to boredom is consumption, not creation. Easter warns that this shift is leading us toward a kind of mental idiocracy, where we lack the patience, focus, and depth needed for meaningful thought or innovation. A major part of Easter's solution lies in reconnecting with the natural world. Through the lens of the biophilia hypothesis, a theory proposed by biologist E.O. Wilson that humans have an innate genetic need to be in nature, Easter examines how modern living, which keeps us indoors, sedentary, and disconnected from the outdoors, is negatively impacting our health and happiness. Nature, he argues, is not just beautiful, it's essential. Time in nature resets our overstimulated brains and restores our biological equilibrium. Even brief exposure, such as 20 minutes outside 3 times a week, significantly lowers cortisol levels, reduces blood pressure, and improves mood. Nature engages our brains in what researchers call soft fascination, a state of relaxed attention where the mind gently focuses on non-threatening, aesthetically pleasing stimuli like rustling leaves or flowing water. This state is neurologically similar to meditation, providing many of the same benefits without the effort or formality. People who regularly experience soft fascination show improved cognitive function, increased creativity, and greater emotional stability. Easter notes that even minimal contact with nature, seeing trees from a window, hearing birdsong, or keeping a plant nearby can boost well-being. Hospitals with views of greenery see faster patient recovery, and people living near parks or forests have lower rates of anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. Easter describes a 3-day arc of rewilding that often occurs when we spend extended time in nature. On the first day, stress levels drop, but we're still uncomfortable, perhaps annoyed by bugs or the absence of Wi-Fi. By the second day, our minds begin to settle and our senses sharpen. We start noticing smells, textures, and sounds we usually overlook. By day 3, we're fully immersed, calm, present, and in sync with the rhythms of the natural world. The discomfort we initially resisted becomes welcome, even pleasurable. We feel more alive, more connected, and more satisfied. Silence, too, becomes a form of therapy in Easter's framework. Though often underestimated, silence has profound effects on the human brain. Studies show that just 2 minutes of silence can be more relaxing than listening to calming music like Mozart. In deeper silences, such as those found in nature, or during intentional screen breaks, the brain actually begins to grow new cells in the hippocampus, a region associated with memory and emotion regulation. For people recovering from trauma or chronic stress, silence can be profoundly healing, and for everyday individuals, moments of quiet restore attention, reduce stress, and foster emotional clarity. In the final sections of the book, Easter turns his attention to diet and the discomfort of hunger. He notes that nearly all diets work until they don't, and that the tipping point is often discomfort. UK surveys show that most people quit their diets after around 5 weeks. Why? Because their bodies begin to resist the change. When we lose weight, our brains compensate by increasing hunger and reducing satisfaction from food, urging us to return to our baseline. For every 2 pounds lost, we unconsciously eat about 100 more calories to regain it. This is a survival response deeply encoded in our biology. Fad diets fail because they ignore this simple truth. Hunger is uncomfortable, and most people don't know how to tolerate it. The solution, Easter suggests, is to embrace hunger, to stop seeing it as a threat, and start seeing it as a natural, even beneficial state. Occasional fasting or mindful eating can help recalibrate our relationship with food. Rather than obsess over macros or cut out entire food groups, we can learn to pause, notice our cravings, and ask whether we're truly hungry or simply bored, anxious, or conditioned. This rewilding of our eating habits doesn't mean rejecting comfort food, but rather shifting our focus toward whole, nourishing foods while accepting that occasional discomfort is a necessary part of true transformation. At its core, the comfort crisis is a wake-up call to those of us living in comfort-saturated societies. Easter urges readers to voluntarily seek out challenges to embrace boredom, solitude, silence, hunger, and nature, not as punishments but as opportunities to grow, remember who we are, and reconnect with the instincts and abilities that made us human. Real growth rarely comes from ease. It is discomfort, he argues, that builds character, reveals clarity, and ultimately brings us back to life.